Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 46th Mill Valley Film Festival. We are so excited to have you here tonight. We are premiering the North American premiere of Day of the Fight, directed by Jack Huston. I just want to say a couple words before we get started. It's been a hard 3 years, and people say people are not going to come back to the movies. Well, I think we just proved them wrong. Feature films, the theatrical experience is here to stay. Unfortunately, it's not just pulling a switch. It's going to be growing back the audience, and this is proof that we are doing this because the films that we are showing are films that are important to our community. We are a community organization, and if we could show films that can give people perspective of what's going on in the world, let them look at a piece of art for two hours and remove themselves from that world while they're growing at the same time and experiencing somebody else's life, putting yourself in their shoes, we have done our job. We have done our job for our community and for you and our family, and I thank you for all your support. None of this can be done by ourselves, and there's a lot of people that, including yourselves, who have made this festival what it is over the last 46 years. I'd like to introduce a woman who has multiple titles and, most importantly, friend, but also former president of the board and the sponsor of the opening night film, Day of the Fight. Please welcome Jennifer McCready.
Good evening. We're so happy you're here to join us for our 46th annual Mill Valley Film Festival. None of this would be possible if not for the man who had a vision and a dream 46 years ago and has made it possible enduring bombing, disease, and now strikes. Mark Fishkin. Mark has a very good support system at home. He has a brilliant crew in the office, very talented. They work hard, and we give them a round of applause. I don't know anybody who has been on the job as long as Mark, except the Queens of England. And of course, they are women. I would like to introduce you now to our own brilliant woman who is president of the Mill Valley Film Festival and the California Institute. Please welcome our president.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maggie O'Donnell. I am the board president for the California Film Institute. And I'm so happy to see all of your smiling faces filling this theater, the Sequoia Theater, the OG home of the Mill Valley Film Festival. And you may have heard that at the end of this month, the California Film Institute is going to be taking over the operations here at the Sequoia. And we're very excited about this, but we're very excited about this, but I did want to let you know that at the end of the festival, the theater will be closed for a short period of time, we're hoping. But don't worry, when you see us dark, we are definitely coming back. All of that said, this is a very challenging time for arts organizations in general, and the Film Institute is no exception. While our audiences are coming back, our attendance is 30% over last year's attendance and is going up. We still are 50% below our average attendance prior to COVID, which is a shame, but we're coming back. But that said, with the lower attendance and without the government money that has helped all of the arts organizations over the last few years survive, this year we are facing a potential budget shortfall that is going to be difficult for us to overcome. So in order to, it is potentially could risk us having to cut back many of our programs that you know and love, such as the Mill Valley Film Festival, the Docklands Documentary Film Festival, our free education programs for students and teachers, and our events and screenings that we've been holding at the Christopher B. Smith Raffel Theater, and we'll soon be bringing you at the Sequoia Theater. I was going to have a QR code behind me, but I do not have one. But you will see a QR code all around during the festival and in various signage around. And we have created this year a CA Film Resiliency Fund. And our friends at Project Number 9 have been very generous to offer a $100,000 matching gift to help us kick off this festival. So what that means is any dollar that you can donate to us now is going to be doubled, and that is absolutely huge for us. So if you can find it in your hearts, find it in your wallets to help us out this year, get over the hump until next year, we would really appreciate it. You can use the QR code, wherever you may find it, to donate by your phone. You can donate in the lobbies, you can donate in the box office, you can go to www.mvff.com. And I want to thank you all very much for being our biggest supporters, our donors, our patrons, for all of your continuing support. And for any additional donations you might be able to make to help us out this year is greatly appreciated. Finally, I'd like to thank our board because they have really stepped up this year generously with their time and their donations. And so thank you to everyone. And now I'm going to hand it back to Mark so we can get the show rolling. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Maggie. Yes, you've heard the phrase, it takes a village. In our case, it's going to take a city. So thank you for your support. But I have just been told that our trailer hasn't been shown, and is for aesthetic reasons, and the fact that our crack staff spent hundreds of hours on it, and the fact is we need to roll the trailer to show the movie. We're going to show you the trailer right now, and I'll be back in a second. We do have a terrific staff and a terrific board, and this is just one example of what they do with the many other thousands of things. As I mentioned, Day of the Fight is directed by Jack Huston, and many of you certainly know that he is an actor, and this is his directorial debut. You're talking about films like House of Gucci, The Irishman, and many, many things like Boardwalk Empire, which was just a stellar small screen form. I just want to say a little bit about this movie, and I don't mean to embarrass you, Jack, but I've told him personally, we were just stunned when we saw this film, regardless of being a directorial debut, but especially because it was a directorial debut. This is exactly the kinds of films that we want to support, we should be supporting, and you should as well, is my hope. So please welcome Jack Huston to the stage.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, Mark. I mean, what an incredible honor this is to have our premiere, our North American premiere at the Mill Valley Film Festival. An absolute dream. This is a festival that has always showcased filmmakers in an amazing community of film lovers. And it's, I couldn't think of a better place for this film to play. You know, my film, it's a dying breed. You know, cinema is, you know, we're being told that it's on the out, and it's not. It's never needed more help than it does right now, and it needs, you know, wonderful people like you who do come here and support films like this. And tells the world that, yeah, we still want something original. We still want something new and creative and with passion and love. And when I say I loved making this movie, that would be the understatement of the year. I loved every second of it. I said even the worst day was the best day. It's called Day of the Fight. It was Fight of the Day. Every day was a fight, but it was a fight worth having, because when you love something so wholly, you're willing to give all of yourself over for it. And this film is a throwback. It's simple in form, because I grew up loving movies and watching films that were character-driven and had heart. And I used to, as the sort of final credits rolled, there was this funny sensation in the pit of my stomach that stayed with me. And I always wanted to make a film that would hopefully stay with you. And, I hope and I believe that we have done that with this. My grandfather, John Huston, used to say that 90% of making a movie is casting. And he wasn't wrong. I lucked out so incredibly well with my cast. I mean, I wrote it with Michael Pitt, my wonderful co-star in Boardwalk Empire. And he gave his heart and soul, and he gives a performance that I think you'll agree, once you've seen the picture, is, it's remarkable and beautiful and poetic and soulful, and everything I knew that he would do. And making a movie in today's world isn't easy. Making a black and white movie, period, without a star is virtually impossible. So I just have to thank all of the people involved who helped make this a reality for me. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, Mark. I'm so proud to be here. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I would like to take this opportunity to just ask you a few questions before we start the movie, while we have you here.
Yeah.
You had mentioned at one time that, I think maybe somebody perhaps had said, what takes you so long to make your first film? But you said you were waiting for lightning to strike. What does that exactly mean?
I can tell you the exact moment. Going back to my Boardwalk days, before each take, Michael Pitt would go and punch a sandbag, which he'd make one of our wonderful grips, Charlie, hold, and he'd just box the sandbag and it would get him into character. And then he'd usually leave the set and go to the boxing gym. And I used to watch this and sort of study Mike, and I always remember thinking to myself, God, he'd be good in a boxing movie. And then 10 years later or so, it was just around about as COVID hit, and I was going on a deep dive of all my favorite filmmakers and sort of doing my homework, because that was what we did, is we stayed home and watched movies. And I watched Stanley Kubrick's Day of the Fight, which is a documentary short. It's 20 minutes. It's about Walter Cartier, the welterweight champion of the world at the time. And it just very simply followed him on the day of a prize fight. He's with his twin brother, he's with his dog, he goes about it, he goes to the garden, he wins the fight. It's very simple, it's very direct. And it was that moment where I said, Michael, boxing movie. What if it wasn't the day of a prize fight? What if it was the day, the last day, the possibility of what one would do? And I wrote every word with Mike in mind. I wrote it over 10 days, and I knew where I'd start, where I wanted to start, and I knew where I wanted to end. And I just sort of let it come to me, and it was an amazing moment, though, when you go, no, that works, that's good, that could work.
Well, it pays to have patience, I guess, because it's a beautiful film. It seems that most everybody in the movie you have worked with before. And I know one in particular, perhaps after you talk about it, you can talk about Joe Pesci and what he meant to the film.
Well, So I had just done a cameo in The Irishman, and I was lucky enough to meet one of my wonderful producers, Jai Stefan, who's here with me now, one of the greats. And Jay works and has worked with Joe for a very long time, and I said, God, this is going to sound crazy, but I've written a part for Joe. And he's like, you're insane, kid. It took Marty 5 years, or how long, Joe? How long, Jay? 13 years to get him to agree to do The Irishman. So I was like, well, okay. But he read it and he was like, you know what, let's take a shot. And he was kind enough to sort of become my partner in crime and consigliere. And we attacked Joe, and sort of he actually did read it, and miraculously he said he'd do the movie. I don't know how it happened. It was one of those moments where you walk out of the house and you just go, did Joe just say he's going to do the movie? And the movie wouldn't have happened if Joe didn't do it, because he was our star, and I owe everything to that. And he gives a performance unlike anything, because, well, I'm not going to give anything away, but he was integral, and I didn't even know if he would do the movie until he pulled up in the car the day of shooting. So a lot was riding on it, but it was an amazing, what a guy. I mean, I said I wanted somebody like Joe who has a history of film, because when you see him in this movie, I wanted us to believe about his past, who he was. And Joe has been such a force, this sort of sacred beast in cinema, and he's so tough, and he's so, he's been portrayed in so many amazing roles in so many amazing ways, and such a master that you needed to be able to create a history with him. So it's the history of Joe's career served us incredibly well for the role he took.
Integrated in the film.
Yeah, exactly.
One last question, and I know you referred...
Sorry, it's probably taking way too long. You want to watch the film?
No, well, just one quick one, because you mentioned your grandfather. And, it's easy for people to perceive, well, am I forced to be doing this? Do I think I have to do it? Or it's working against me? But I read some things that you wrote about, and it's so just not only refreshing, but lovely to hear. And I wonder if you could share some of your thoughts, not only your grandfather, with your aunt and your uncle, and being in the business, the longevity of your family in the film business.
I mean, I grew up, it was amazing. I was shown film, my earliest memories were movies. And I loved them from the moment I watched the first one. I was completely in rapture, and it was the magic. And then I was, I always say I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I got to actually experience it on a film set as a kid and watch my aunt, dressed as the Grand High Witch in Roald Dahl's The Witches. And you're like, oh my God, you can actually do this. So, it comes from a place of love. And I always say, like my grandfather, like many of the wonderful directors I've worked with, everybody has a different style. Everybody goes about it in different ways, but there is one single through line, which is they all have an immense love of cinema and respect of film. And it's infectious. No matter what set you're on, if you know that the director or the people you're working with have that love, you feel in good hands. And I think that's what we were lucky enough to have on this movie, which was the confidence in we're making something together, something special, something important, something that we were collaborating on. I never said it was my movie. I said it was our movie, and we were doing it together. And that's why it sort of transpired on screen in the way it did. So I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I got a family who have always been so supportive. They've given me advice, and I'm in awe of them. I've loved their movies, going back to my great-grandfather, Walter. And what you'll see in the memories, is my son, Cyprus, and my wife play the young Michael and his mother. So my son is actually fifth generation of my family. on screen, so he gets to see his great-great-grandfather. So that was, I mean, I was just in tears the whole time when he was acting, because it was such a beautiful moment, and it was, yeah, I think this is a dream.
Well, that's beautiful, and thank you, Jack, and I can't wait for this audience to see the film. And thank you, buddy.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it.
Jack Huston.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here for our opening night of the 46th Mill Valley Film Festival. And can I just say, thank God for cinema. Just being able to tell stories on screens with a congregation of people, it's really, really special. And I'm so glad that we're getting back into it. And I'm so glad that we are opening the Mill Valley Film Festival with a truly independent film. This is like getting back to our roots. This is, very, very special. And we have 3 great guests who are going to join us tonight. Director, writer, and producer Jack Huston. Jai Stefan, our producer for tonight, and the director of photography, Peter Simonite. So please welcome our guests.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yay.
Hi, thank you.
Jack, Peter, Jay, welcome to the Mill Valley Film Festival. And I'm so glad that we have your film as our opening night film. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Such an honor, honestly.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions for you, but let's see how this goes. So we're seeing here a nice cross-section of the team that it takes to make a film. The writer and the director of photography, the producer. How did this part of the team come together?
Okay.
You know what? I'll answer.
Yeah, you do. It'd be easier.
This whole thing came together because of Jack. It was Jack from. We were working on another movie together, and
What was that?
The Irishman.
The Irishman by
Yeah.
some chap, right?
I don't remember the director's name, but it was but Jack. It was at the premiere of that movie in New York, and Jack approached me in a restroom about an idea for a movie he had. He didn't have a script. He had an idea, and he gave me sort of the elevator pitch. And I loved it, and I said, I'd like to see a script. And he said, I don't have a script, it's all in my head, I don't need a script, I know exactly who's going to be in it. I need Michael Pitt and I need Joe Pesci.
Wow.
And I said, that's great, but we're probably going to need a script to get some financing. And then COVID happened, and long story short, he wrote the script over COVID, and he sent it over. And it was beautiful. He wrote it very quickly. It was all in his head, and he just needed some pandemic to force him into a chair to spit it out. And once it came in, it just was Jack's tenacity for every aspect of the movie, from the script to the casting to the above the line team with the other producers, Josh Porter and Emma Tillinger-Koskoff and Colleen Camp and Todd Diener, and it was just really was driven by Jack from the bottom up and the top down, and we were just fortunate to be on for the ride, really.
Yeah. I find it kind of fascinating, just, in the creative process. Sometimes you start with an idea, you develop it, you develop characters, that whole thing, but sometimes things come in that light bulb moment, and it sounds like you had that light bulb moment. Is that right? Or
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work with Michael Pitt and, God, who was that director again? He did Boardwalk Empire. Yeah, back in the day, I was lucky enough to work with him, and I was always so taken by his ability to be so present, and he had so much soul, and he was sort of beautiful, broken, but he had this sort of like something unobtainable that you can't teach. It's not about an actor, it's something that goes much deeper. And I used to watch him sort of punch a sandbag in between takes.
Literally?
Yeah, literally. He would get our lovely grip, Charlie.
Is this on Boardwalk?
This is on Boardwalk.
Yeah.
Who worked as the grip on our film, as Charlie.
Charlie Sharon, yeah.
Charlie Sharon,
Great
exactly.
Charlie
I mean, like, I really got the band back together for this one. It was crazy,
Yes,
but
you
I
did.
always remembered him punching these sandbags. Then he would always leave to go to the boxing gym. And back then I was like, God, he'd be great in a boxing movie. He'd be so good. And I used to sit there and just watch him, you know, as you do. You just sort of like stare at people who are fascinating to you. You know, cut to 10 years later, and well, it's always in the back of my head. And I was watching a Kubrick short called Day of the Fight, which was a documentary, and it was, you know, it's very brief. It's about Walter Cartier, and it's just on a boxer on the day of a prize fight. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fascinating to go deeper on that and say, what if it was the last day of that fighter's life? So it's a sort of journey through his past and present. And if he knows this is his last day. And, you know, all of those memories of Michael came sort of flooding back. And, yeah, and then I heard Joe Pesci, funnily enough, because Jay worked with Joe. If you didn't realize, that song that Michael plays is actually Joe singing. That's Joe Pesci's song when he leaves the retirement. I heard Joe sing, and that part came to me about the father, because I thought, God, isn't it amazing, the idea of Joe not speaking, but you hear him sing at the end. And it was, you know, it was. I said, like, you have to get the most powerful of actors to be able to do a role where you conjure up an entire history and you don't say a word. And that's that's testament to Joe's artistry and his amazing, you know, I mean, he like we said, he's the sacred beast. He's the guy. He's just created so many characters that have sort of live and breathe in our minds and imagination, that when he comes to the home, you needed an actor powerful enough to conjure that exact history for an audience, and there was no one but Joe. So, you know, when I cornered Jay in the bathroom and I said, it's got to be Michael and Joe Pesci, he looked at me and he was like, it took Marty 13 years to get him to say yes to The Irishman. And I was like, I can't do it without them. It's got to be Joe. And thank God he said yes, because, you know, that's my brother here who helped do that.
Did you say your first kidnap?
My first kidnapping. The first time I kidnapped someone was Joe Pesci.
Oh, okay. What did that look like?
It was easy. He's little.
I'm going to ask all of you about my first impression of the film. When I first started watching the film, first of all, I want to say, you know, I mean, I saw it from a link, and I really appreciated your team saying, hold off a minute, we got to get a little bit further along with the production before you see it. But the thing that really, really struck me in that first scene was the relationship of image and sound and music. Not just sound, but music. And it's almost like you composed this film, and I'm going to put that on all of you, in a way that if I was thinking about a classical composition of music on staves, you know, one line would be the cinematography, one line would be the acting, one line would be the words, one line would be the music. And it's the music part of that really, really struck me in the beginning. As you had this light bulb moment, and you know, threw it at Jay in the bathroom, was that a part of the original light bulb, or? Okay, I'm just seeing it. Go for it.
No, I wrote every music cue. in the movie. Like it's like
In
they're
the
all
script.
written in the script.
Yeah.
His life is that. Like he lives in this sort of, I say purgatory, because the film is sort of a big question of life and who are we, what are we worth. I thought it was fascinating to write a scene between two best friends, one of them being a priest but not once mentioning God, because that's not how you relate. It's like you gotta, but all of it was. There was music. I write to music, so I would like write the cues in, like of like when it would drop, and they.
You listen to music when you write?
When I write in certain scenes, like the whole film, and I got my brother-in-law, who's never scored a film, my sister's husband, Ben McDermott. This is the first film he's ever scored, and he did the entire score for this film, and. Everything in making film, it's about your gut, and it was never about that he'd never scored a film. It's just the moment you speak to someone and they say, I can do this, when you believe it and you can feel it, you know it's true. And it was sort of the same for, when I first had my first conversation with Peter, because the images of this movie were very specific, and it had to be someone who I felt related incredibly well, as with the music, to, because I think music is a character of the movie.
Yep.
It is another character in the film. His ex-wife, his father, he's never without his Walkman, even in the taxi, which you can say, did it happen, didn't it happen, when he's seeing his father. That's why at the end when he looks around, it's like, maybe he never got in that taxi. It's like the sort of beauty, but the music carries you through because it is a journey. And I sort of relate music so much to my life and things that move me, and the sense memory. Some of my favorite films as an actor, sorry to sort of digress, but music is just such an important thing because it can trigger so much emotion. And just going to the imagery, it's like when I first spoke to Peter, it was about relating to the material and coming up, together, being simpatico. Like we had an instant bond, and obviously I'd love to you to bring that up. But.
You're up.
Yeah, I mean, Jack's script was so beautiful and so moving, and to your point about the music, the relationship of the music and the imagery. Since all those needle drops were written into the script, when I was reading it, I would just put the song on and listen to it and read the scene again.
So there were actual cues that were in the script that you could actually listen to?
Yeah.
I mean, actual... Okay.
I would do, sometimes I'd get Mike to do something, and he'd be like, what am I doing? And I'd be like, watch it and listen to this.
Yeah.
And he'd watch it and he goes, oh, I get it. Like, because it's funny. It's like, you relate that. It's so funny. Like sound, image, taste, smell, everything.
Yeah.
And Jack is equally a visual artist as he is a director of actors. And so that was one of the great gifts of getting to work with Jack on this, is that he brought so many photographic references, and we just had a good communication about how he wanted to approach the visuals.
What kind of photographic references did he bring to you, Peter?
Well, we talked about noir films. He was always very clear he wanted it to be black and white with these touches of color.
Yeah.
We talked about his grandfather's films, I think Fat City, Day of the Fight, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, The Hustler was a big one. I always said there was something, growing up, I was brought up on black and white films, and I also was brought up in that time when cinema was a little more simple. And when I say simple, I don't mean that in anything but a positive, because there was so much focus on character back then in those films that I remember, and they stayed with me, that you don't have to say a lot to say everything. It's about sometimes the simplicity of a story gives such an opportunity to witness something human and something real. And I was so lucky with everybody I got to work with, because they brought so much to it. It was such a collaboration, but when you're with these actors and it feels incredibly safe and they trust you, there were days on set like the Joe scene was our second day, and I had Mike live with me for 10 days before the movie started, which was intense. And we spoke a lot about our fathers and about what certain things and abuse and
at your house. He was living with you, and
yeah. It was rough. It was. I wouldn't recommend it. I said on the day before filming, I had to call Jay and Josh and my producer. And I was like, you gotta get Mike an apartment. I can't live with him when I'm making the movie. But out of complete love, it was just because we were so close. So we did everything that was needed just before. So
I think was that a 2-minute call? Oh God. Okay. All right. Do you want to party or do you want to talk? Do we want to talk? Give us 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Come on. Because actually, okay, let's just talk about boxing for a second. Because, you mentioned Day of the Fight, the Kubrick short. And an amazing moment for me in my early days as a film curator was we did a tribute to Robert Wise, who directed Sound of Music, West Side Story, all that kind of stuff. But we'd put a clip reel together, and it included his boxing film, which was made in, I think, 1949, The Setup. And, I'm a white girl from England. It's like boxing, what? But watching that film, I got to see how he directed. Yeah. So, and it's just kind of amazing to look at a film when you're looking for that moment. And you see, you dive into what's going on and you see how they direct. So with the boxing genre, were there things that any of you brought to this from discussions that you may have had together or looked at or inspired by?
I think from my point of view, we were always really aware of the other boxing films that are out there, but I don't think that I purposely did not watch the other films because I didn't want to be too overly influenced by them.
Yeah.
We also said it's not a box. This was what we approached it. We said it's not a boxing film; it's a film about a boxer, which is a big difference, I think, because the fight. We made this movie in 20 days, which was we had 24 days, and they kept on taking days away from us. So we made the whole film in 20 days, which was, it's independent film at its best is when they keep saying hey, can you you've got 5 days on the fight, then you've got 4 days of the fight, you've got 3 days fight. We shot the entire boxing match in a day and a half. That's an entire boxing match, we did. But we were always, sometimes when you're given those sort of boundaries and people it's when one becomes their most creative. And we worked so well about that because we said you almost didn't need the fight for the film to still work. You could find him after the fight and see what happened. But it's almost gravy. We just said, why don't we just go shoot a boxing match that will blow your socks off because it's amazing. And Mike really fought. That's Mike beating the shit out of each other. That's the coolest thing.
And Jack really, I think in that moment, because there was such a pressure of time, it's a major set piece in the film and we had a really brief window. It was a great delight for me to watch him direct that scene because Jack had the movie so much in his head that, we were shooting things in series and Jack was working directly with our wonderful Steadicam operator, Jim McConkey, and just come over here, get this shot, it was really a beautiful moment of energy.
Yeah, and Pete's, he's got such a beautiful eye and so soulful. He was always so delicate and always, someone who's so. When I say a perfectionist, I say that it's amazing because I never doubted that it would look great. So you really get to sort of get in the thick of it. And I got to work with David O. Russell, and I always remember David, he just grabs Steadicam operators and throws them around and pushes them here and do that. So at this point, we had 3 cameras. I was like, we just got to get it. So I just be grabbing their backs and move them here and say, come up, come and fight the screen, do this, get over there, move, get in, you do it. And it's exciting because everyone's sweating, everyone's like losing their minds, but you're getting some real stuff. And it was, that's the sort of fun of the filmmaking part is, I'm like, I know I got it in the edit. I'll be able to, I know that works with that. And as long as you have a beginning, a middle, and end of everything, you can figure it out.
Right. So, Jay?
That, for the record, was not fun for me at all. Because when artists are running around with cameras saying, trust me, I know what I'm doing, it's terrifying. Because it's not, I got it. And it's not, it says something different on the page. And these two in the ring with the actors and me shaking in the audience.
So you're following the script and they are not?
No, they're not following. Well, they're following.
But we got 3 days taken away from us.
Yes, and I was
match.
responsible for that.
And I remember when both Jay and Josh called me and said, sorry, you've got now, we can maybe get you a day and a half. And I had an entire boxing match, and I was like, well, now I got to think of it in a different way. But I think on that phone call, within 10 minutes, I decided there was a new way of making the boxing match, which was cool.
It was just terrifying to watch. But it worked out.
Would you work
great.
with him again?
Of course. I can't wait. I'm serious. I can't wait.
Yeah. Who's got the best question in the world? Yes.
Congratulations, this is a terrific movie I've seen. And about the movie, most of the scenes, 99% are black and white. This is very, very thin black color. You want to explain how did you choose it?
So the question is about shooting in black and white and
Little bits of
We-
color.
and
Yeah,
a
he
little
knows.
bit of color. How did you choose the color? How did you choose the black and white?
It was, well, I wrote the script because I sort of said as a metaphor, his life is black and white, and he's trying to paint colors to his memory. So they come back, and it's a bit like that sense. But when me and Pete were talking about it, it was always a very fine line because we didn't want it to be garish. We didn't want it to be suddenly, black and white, and suddenly like you're hit by moments of color.
And to just be too jarring on your eyes. And I think we talked about Moulin Rouge, your grandfather's version.
My granddad, years ago, he made Moulin Rouge, and this is back with Technicolor, and they were doing some pretty crazy stuff back then, because if they were thinking about the Moulin Rouge and the sort of absinthe-soaked night, so they were really pushing Technicolor, and I think Technicolor came to set one day because they were up in arms about how they were making their product look, and they came and complained to my grandfather, and he turned to Ozzie Morris, his wonderful DP, and said, Ozzie, do you think it's good? And he goes, I think it's wonderful, John. He said, gentlemen, go fuck yourselves. So there was something beautiful about that, and it was like we always talked about this idea of painting color, of doing something like he's trying to paint color to his life, and that was the amazing thing about Pete is, he really understood the poetry of it, that it can never be, it's not too much, so
Yeah, and then we collaborated with a great colorist, Tim Stippen, and found the right balance together. Spent a lot of time getting do one drop more or one drop less.
I just want to point out that Peter Simonite has 2 films in the festival this year. This one and Frybread. It's the best tongue twister in the world. Frybread, Face and Me, I mean, much longer conversations about that I would love to get in at some point, maybe at the party, So look out for that as well. This is a great way to start the festival, and I'm so glad that you are here and that you all found each other, and I look forward to future collaborations between you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have to say thank you so much for supporting this film. It's a dying breed. These movies don't get made anymore. It's impossible. It's impossible. We need your support to keep these films alive. I love cinema. I want original films to be made, and we need to prove to people that there's still a place in our society, that we want to go and watch something and be moved and not be cynical and actually really enjoy and be left with a feeling. So thank you so much for coming here, and as many people as you can tell.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.